Welcome into Seahawks Today. I am your host, Will Ortner, and man, oh man, there are trades swirling around your Seattle Seahawks. I feel a little bit like Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz in that tornado. Just every single time I turn my head, there's something new going on with the ball club. You've got a couple of trade rumors surrounding your players that would be, a player getting traded for someone in a position that you don't really need. And then there are some trade targets that GM John Schneider could be taking a look at that we're going to dive into on today's show. But I want to make sure that I get this across to you first. Subscribe to the channel. You do not want to miss out on any breaking Seattle Seahawks news. We are right near the trade deadline, and John Schneider is not afraid to make a big-time trade at the deadline. The minute that he does, we are going to get that content out to you. Do not worry. If you are subscribed, you will not miss any of that content or any of that information. It's the best way to stay up to date with your Seattle Seahawks. First, we're going to look at the Seahawks making a big splash potential. Now, what might be surprising here is what the compensation is for. The Seattle Seahawks are now rumored to all of a sudden want Achane? Don't you already have Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet at home? Why would the Seahawks make a move where they would trade Riq Woolen away for Dolphins running back Achane? Now, what this rumor started out as was just kind of hey, this is a team in the Miami Dolphins that things aren't going the way that they want it to right now. Riq Woolen's on the trading block. Riq Woolen would fit into their defense if they went through a rebuild. He is a younger player still. People forget that. And it could be a move that Seattle wants to make. Sleeper NFL is the spot where I saw it aggregated, right? Riq Woolen is among other assets that could be used to get Dolphins running back Achane. And that was from Tony Pauline. He's a Sportskeeda. Went through and I read the article. It's an interesting article. That's where we're going to leave it at. It's a very interesting article where I feel like maybe there's not an understanding of what's going on in Seattle's running back room because, Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet, maybe they haven't performed to the level that the Seattle Seahawks would want. They definitely haven't performed to the level that I would want. But it doesn't make sense to move on from Riq Woolen, a cornerback in a position room that, well, frankly, right now you are very injury riddled. And if you lose one corner and another corner then gets hurt, which we've seen happen this year, you're moving on to Nehemiah Pritchett, who really hasn't performed at the level that he needs to, for a person that you are already kind of fine in that running back room. Like, if you make this trade, don't you have to move on from Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet? I just don't think that this trade is going to be very likely. It doesn't make sense. Like, at least with the DN position, like trade rumors, right? With like Trey Hendrickson or Max Crosby, guys like that, it's like, okay, this is Seattle upgrading. This is Seattle making a position of strength, a clear position of strength, and one of the best position groups in the NFL. That's not what you would be doing at running back. I don't think that this trade is likely. I do think you're going to see a lot of trades being made at the deadline. And honestly, at this point, I think the Seattle Seahawks are going to be a part of it in some way. I think that the rest of this video is going to get into more likely targets that you could see the Seahawks making moves for. And this is going to be the first time that we really dive into the Seahawks making trades for a defensive player. But before we do that, I want to ask you. I've asked a couple people on Twitter, and a lot of Seahawks fans are the same as me. I'm not trading for Achane. There's no reason to add him to this team. And honestly, you might have to give up more assets than he's worth, despite the Miami Dolphins not being very good. Let me know what your thoughts are down below in the comments. Would you trade for Achane or would you not? Now we're going to dive into the potential trade targets for your Seahawks. We've got 4 here, 3 in the same position room, and 1 who it's the same group of players defensively, but he's not in the same position group. I'll let you figure out who these players are as we go through it. The first trade target that Seattle could have would be L'Jarius Sneed over at Tennessee. Now, this is a trade that I actually don't hate because Sneed has shown when he was at Kansas City with the Chiefs that he can be one of the best corners in the NFL. Now, has he taken a step back? Yeah, a little bit. It's clear that he's not performing at the same level. He's clearly not one of the better corners in the NFL like he had been when he was in Kansas City. But he's still a player that's proven. He's a guy who clearly had to fight through some injuries last year. He's a guy who, if he does stay healthy at being 6'1" at that cornerback position, he becomes a matchup nightmare. Is he someone that fits in the McDonald system a little bit better? I mean, shoot, if you can turn him into half of what his 2022 season was with the Seahawks, I'm going to be pretty darn excited. Now, why would the Titans trade L'Jarius Sneed? It's simple. They suck. They are not good in Tennessee. I don't know if you've been paying attention to the Titans. You shouldn't. There's no reason to be. But they just fired their head coach, and his dad quit, which, I mean, that just kind of makes sense. But when you fire a head coach, you're clearly making a decision to go in a different direction. You are going to rebuild a team. L'Jarius Sneed does not fit into that plan. Would he be an upgrade for your Seattle Seahawks? Yeah, I do think he would be. I think he'd be a guy that would start opposite of Devin Witherspoon now that Josh Jobs come back down to earth a little bit, or with the amount of multiple different formations that Seattle likes to run defensively, maybe he's just a guy that you include. Maybe when we look at this depth chart, he doesn't start over Josh Jobe, but he comes in like Riq Woolen does when Devin Witherspoon bounces out to that nickel. Maybe L'Jarius Sneed ends up getting into a position battle with Josh Jobe, and then it turns into an iron sharpens iron type of deal. Maybe this is a spot where now you can move on from a Nehemiah Pritchett and you can add more depth to other position rooms, like that safety room, which has seen a lot of injury issues go its way. You can add in extra wide receivers. Maybe this allows you to now trade Riq Woolen for a Devon Achane and then trade away some running backs to get some offensive lineman help. Maybe it's the first move. I think that this trade makes sense because not only do you get an upgrade at that cornerback position, or a possible upgrade, but you are now freeing up space to move on from Riq Woolen. Because a lot of the other trades and trade options that you had in Seattle didn't make sense when you trade away Riq Woolen, because you then created a weakness in that cornerback room instead of fixing a weakness and clearing up a strength. So to me, L'Jarius Sneed, I would think that he would make a little bit of sense in Seattle. Now, the next trade target that we are going to go through here is in another organization that, well, they suck. And that's the Miami Dolphins. Rasul Douglas would be a cornerback that Seattle could be a potential target for. It could be someone that they would be willing to bring in. But before we get into who Rasul Douglas is and why we want to bring him in, we're going to get into our sponsor of today's video, and that is Prize Picks. You and I make decisions every day, but being on Prize Picks can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement this season on Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. Prize Picks is simple to play. Just pick more or less on any 2 to 6 player stat projections, and if your picks are right, you could cash in. Prize Picks invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. Prize Picks is the best way to win cash this football season. Which players are going off, which ones are overhyped. Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your takes into cash all season long on Prize Picks. I have a 2-pick power play for this week. Travis Kelce, I think he finds the end zone more on his rush and receiving TDs. Jaxon Smith-Njigba, more on his rush and receive TDs. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. So as we look through the bio for Rasul Douglas, you can see this year, again, he's having a slightly down year, but he is a strong candidate in this defense. He's a big, tall, long corner. He's a guy who's been in the NFL for quite a while. He understands the game. He understands how to put himself in a position to make big plays for this defense. He's a guy who's had a long career and who's had a good career at that. Now, obviously, he doesn't have any interceptions in the 2024 campaign, but I don't necessarily need him to come into Seattle and immediately have turnovers. I need him to come into Seattle, be able to make tackles on the outside. I need him to come into Seattle and make plays on the outside by not allowing the wide receivers to catch the ball. I'm okay if he has his worst tackle season of his career, as long as he doesn't allow opposing wide receivers to make big-time catches. Why would the Miami Dolphins trade Douglas? They're horrible, man. They have the worst vibes in the NFL. They have player meetings every other day. He does not fit into a rebuild in Miami. Douglas has been in the NFL for a while. He's a guy that can't sit around for another rebuild. He's a guy that, frankly, you weren't sure if he was going to play this year. He can't do that. He needs to come to a place like Seattle where he can win right now. Again, adding Douglas makes it easier to trade Woolen because you have someone to replace Woolen. If you do have that injury or two in that cornerback room, you can rest assured that you have a player that can fill that role, that can fill that spot. A player that, frankly, is going to be a great backup for you, or a player that could maybe even get some quality starts in there as well. The last corner that we're going to look at is back in Tennessee, and that is Roger McCreary. Now, McCreary is a little bit of a younger target, which is different than Sneed and Douglas. They've been around the block for a little bit. McCreary is actually younger than me. He's a guy who has shown a skill set that would be very valuable. So valuable to the point where I think this is probably the most difficult trade that I have thrown up here that Seattle could make, because I don't know that Tennessee is fully willing to get rid of McCreary. You can see his stats over his career so far. I mean, shoot, those 2022 and 23 campaigns, the kid is absolutely fantastic. Now, he doesn't have a lot of interceptions, but he is making a lot of tackles, getting the ball knocked down. He's doing a great job of making plays for that Tennessee defense. Now, he goes down, slight dip in 24, and in 25, he struggled according to PFF grades. But that doesn't mean that he can't come into Seattle and make a big-time play. That doesn't mean that he can't help push you forward. But why would the Seahawks trade for McCreary? The reason that they would trade for McCreary is because he adds to this defense if he can continue to play up to his potential. What's most important for Seattle is going to be bringing in trade pieces that I think can help you in the long term, in the long run. It's why I think it's going to be hard to get McCreary out of Tennessee, because he does fit actually into their rebuilding path. But if you offer up enough, you might be able to bring him in. And if McDonald is willing to offer up enough to get McCreary to play with them in Seattle, I do think that you might find a long-term corner here. Sometimes it just takes a change of scenery. If you trade Riq Woolen away to Tennessee, I hope that that change of scenery works out for him as well. This is the most interesting defensive trade target that I've seen. And that's safety Minkah Fitzpatrick of the Miami Dolphins. Now, I'm going to be honest. This is not coming from an ESPN expert. This is not coming from an NFL.com expert. This is coming from a Seahawks blogger as well. I'm not going to name him. I might be kind of mean in this, so I'm not going to name them. But they offered and said, what if we traded for Minkah Fitzpatrick, and instead of shoring up that cornerback room, we shore up the safety room? Now, Minkah's a great player. I mean, I think that's very obvious. You've seen him come in and make a lot of big plays over his career. But what's most important is why Minkah is in Miami and not why he's in Pittsburgh. You heard he was a locker room cancer in Pittsburgh, and he was not doing the things that he should have been doing or needed to be doing. Why would Miami trade Minkah Fitzpatrick? He does not fit into the long-term plans again. They are blowing this thing up. I don't know if you watch the Chat Sports Miami Dolphins channel. If you're a Miami Dolphins fan, you should. They are in a terrible place right now. I almost said a bad word. They are not in a good spot. Literally every video is fire everybody. If they're firing everybody, that means they're rebuilding. And if they're rebuilding, a close to 30 or over 30 safety does not fit into that. They would trade him away. He is not a long-term asset. I want this clear, though, because I've said it already, and I'm going to say it again. No! I do not want Minkah. I don't care if he is this great player that he used to be back at the beginning of his career. I do not want him. Julian Love will come back and be healthy soon. He is a better option. He is a leader in the clubhouse for you. Nick Eamon-Wari just graded out on PFF at over 80. Kobe Bryant, yes, he's had his struggles in tackling, but when he gets called to the carpet, he fixes those mistakes. Even Ty Okuda is fixing some of the issues that he's had. I do not want Minkah Fitzpatrick. But it's not fair to just listen to me. While I do bleed Seahawks blue and green, and I am an expert in the field, that doesn't mean that I'm always right. So I want you to pick one. Would you trade for any of these players? If you trade for L'Jarius Sneed, type LS in the comments. Rasul Douglas, RD. Roger McCreary, that's the one I'd really like. RM down in the comments. Minkah Fitzpatrick, no. Type MF in the comment. And don't add an at Will Ortner. That would hurt my feelings. Just MF. Right now, we are trying to catch the Chiefs channel here at Chat Sports. We are within 250 subscribers. I want to catch them by the end of October. I think not only can we catch them, we can put some big distance between them and us by the end of October. Help us get there. Subscribe to the channel. If you know anyone who loves the Seattle Seahawks, have them subscribe to the channel as well. And until next time, I'll see you later.